Good morning. My name is Jerry Odell and I'm here representing One Channel North America. Today we are going to be doing a demonstration of 1Retail point of sale, a product that we've built specifically for Acumatica. It is a full-featured retail point of sale system built by us to address the current and future needs of modern retail businesses. Essentially the move to customer-driven retail and the move from omni-channel to something called unified commerce are the motivators for these changes. I wanted to point out that we are an ISV that's been in the retail industry for about 35 years and have installed hundreds of point-of-sale systems worldwide. Having said that, 1Retail is a brand new product for Acumatica. It was developed using the Acumatica SDK. It is certified for Acumatica and incorporates the very latest in technology for security and for development, and we hope you will see that as we go through the process of showing you the software today. I really wanted to point out that because we are built specifically for Acumatica, 1Retail can tap into systems, subsystems, and components of Acumatica that would be very hard to tie into without being built into Acumatica. And it gives us the ability to do things that a lot of other systems would have difficulty doing. And this grid basically shows the different parts of Acumatica that 1Retail touches. The key differentiators of 1Retail, we wanted to list them here. And if you take nothing else away from this presentation, I think it's important to note that there are a few things that really set us apart from other point of sales. One of them, the first one, is the uninterrupted offline mode. Because the world is migrating from the desktop world and the legacy way of doing things in point of sale to a mobile and cloud-based deployment and a number of other things, a move to 5G and mobility and the high speeds of transaction processing, uninterrupted offline mode is a pretty important feature that we've added. And basically it means that you can take a till or a tablet or 1Retail deployed on some device, a smartphone for instance, and take it to places where there is no internet, and you'll be able to process to a very high degree transactions. And when the internet comes back, or you relocate to an area where you can get internet, you'll be able to finish off the transactions in Acumatica very seamlessly. It'll know when the software will know when you're connected, and will start up where it left off basically. Because we're built inside of Acumatica, training and maintenance becomes much less of an issue. Learning as well, because the POS clients are effectively phone apps. Anybody with a smartphone will have very little trouble picking up the operation of the software and understanding how to use it. There's going to be a very low support requirement compared to other sites when you install it because of this. We don't have to deal with external POS servers and installing databases and the maintenance that goes with it. We have a very elegant way of sending files out. It's very efficient. And we don't have any real need for an external POS server, again, because we're also built inside of Acumatica. With regards to transaction processing, I expect that we'll be able to do a few things that would be very difficult to do if you weren't based in Acumatica. That's why those items are on the list. The other thing we've added excuse me, is card present payment processing. Just as a side note, you can also do card present payment processing with an application that we developed for sales order processing inside of Acumatica. The advantage to card present payment processing, for those that aren't familiar with it, is that you get much better rates than a typical web type of online processing of credit cards. So having said that, I'm going to launch the POS client. And hopefully you can see that. I'll go ahead and log in. And what you hopefully can see is a POS screen, a very generic point of sale screen. As we mentioned before, 1Retail is a template driven application. If we change the template, the screen layout will change, and you can also grab the corner and resize the application, or it will resize itself based on the form factor of the device that you're attached to. And by doing the combination of those things, we believe that we can operate on just about any type of device, high resolution, small size, or PC desktop or tablet or whatever that you may need to do processing on. The screen itself is, we'll do a quick tour of here, but basically there are a few hard and fast buttons, like the manage button. It lets us into processes that are done infrequently, like probably do a cash out once every shift change or once a day. There are some maintenance functions for the POS client that can be run by a manager or somebody with a higher security access capability in the software. And then standard reports for POS. Below that is feedback area. The system is continually talking to Acumatica and the in-store hub, and there's background tasks running all the time, and sometimes you need to be aware of what's going on, so they're published there. A function bar with a number of functions on it is below that, and we'll tap into a few of these in just a second. Below that is an area for building the transaction, the available point of sale transactions that can run at the till, a number pad, and some buttons for traversing the software. On the left hand side, the walk-in customer is identified in green. If we tap in, we have the ability to add a customer or select a different customer from here. But I can also do that from the front end here. If you need to do a ship to, that's you tap this button and away you go with that. It's an area for entering and searching for items. So if I put a partial item number in, it'll bring back what it can find. If I type the word food in here, which I know there's a lot of category of food items, it'll bring back the category of items. So that a quite efficient search. We can type items in here, we can scan barcodes, we can launch the search directly. So it's a very easy way to add items to the transactions. And then below that is, on this template, is a list of the categories or item classes, and within those are the items that are available for sale in the POS. So you click on whatever category or item class you want, and a list of available options pops up, or item numbers pop up. At the bottom of the screen, a little bit of information about who's running the till and the warehouse it's drawing from, and etc. And then on the very bottom right-hand side is a little green button that tells us the connection state of the software, whether or not you're online or offline. And that'll, of course, indicate whether or not you can process certain types of transactions or not. So the system launches into an invoicing or sales mode. To do a new sale, we just either select a customer or accept the walk-in customer, and then scanning or entering the items that are going to be sold to this customer. You enter all the numbers you need, or the items that the customer wants to buy. Hit the enter key or the black bar at the bottom, and it takes us to a payment area, and we're able to sell, complete the transaction, tender it with one or more tender types, and print a sales slip or not. We have the option of selling, for printing to 1 copy, 2 copies, to one or more documents, 8.5 by 11 or invoice size versus sales slips, and we can email. So you can email slips to somebody after they finish buying something from you in the store. The different transaction types that are here. At some level, all POSs are the same. They'd have to do a basic set of transactions, and we can do all of those. But in addition to those, because we're tied to Acumatica, we can do special orders or layaways or laybys with the layaway button. I've chosen a customer, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. Put 3 or 4 items on the transaction, and then we have the option of tendering it partially or not at all, and that will show up in Acumatica as an open sales order, which can be completed from within Acumatica or at the till here. Similarly, a quote can be done, and that'll show up in Acumatica as a quote. No sale is pop the cash drawer. Cash paid in, cash paid out from the till, and return and credit note. And then lastly, you have the ability to sell something, or to accept payment from somebody and apply it as a prepay, or if we choose a customer again, we can apply it with the paid in applied to a specific transaction or invoice, and do a payment on that invoice from the till, and it'll be applied to the invoice in Acumatica, and the paid in unapplied, it goes in as a prepay. That's basically the transaction types. The buttons at the top are pretty self-explanatory. Price lookup lets you find an item and see what quantity by location. The fields are optional fields, effectively. If you wanted to put a PO on a field inside of the POS and have it carried through to Acumatica, you can do that. Reprint the last transaction, put a transaction on hold and recall it. And I'll touch into the history area, and this keeps a list of all the transactions at the till. If we click on something here, we can see a recap of the transaction and have the ability at the bottom to recall it and modify it, or reissue it, do a return or partial return of the items in it, reprint the transaction, or reprint to a different printer. That's pretty much the POS, and just to reiterate, the templates allow us to change the layout of the screens, and there are a number of templates available, and there will be more added as we take on deployments to different industries. So having said all of that, I'm going to proceed to back to the Acumatica side of the presentation. And here's the 1Retail components inside of Acumatica. There's an area for the transaction processing. the configuration and setup and maintenance of the POS itself, screen layout and styles, and reports. And to configure the system, you basically walk this list of options, and as you get near the bottom here to the tills and workstations, once you've added tills, you'll effectively have set up the point of sale. If there's a hub set up in a store and a POS client attached to it, the system will seed itself and allow you to carry on with retail sales at the store from that point forward. With regard to transaction processing, we can do cash outs, obviously, and if you want to look at a cash out, there's a summary of information at the top, a breakdown of the count of the cash out, and non-cash components as well. And then for the actual transactions, we did a few transactions at the till. We've got a refresh cycle set at 1 minute, so the transactions will appear in Acumatica approximately 1 minute after they're finished. And if you have multiple stores and multiple tills, these transactions will be coming in. The idea was to have an automation process to schedule the posting of them to Acumatica from the 1Retail tables and inside of Acumatica. And we can either do that on an automation process, or if I chose to do it manually, I can do that. And we'll just go ahead and do it. And, take a few seconds. Depending on the transaction type, 1Retail transaction type, the transaction types are identified here. We'll be creating orders, invoices, payments inside of Acumatica and on customer accounts or whatever you would expect. The transactions, you can drill into them and see a complete recap, what was sold, payments, taxes, any messages that are produced by the system regarding posting or whatever, salespeople, a complete recap of what was done on the transaction. And I'll just hurry along back to the presentation to run through a couple more slides and do that now. And in closing, I wanted to point out that we've also got a loyalty program that will be going into certification very shortly, and after that it'll be available to work in conjunction, in unison with 1Retail, and also be able to process loyalty transactions and assign points and redeem points and give benefits to customers of 1Retail through the till and through the omni-channel interface to Acumatica, and that means sales orders and invoices and the like. Any questions? This is for the benefit of people outside of North America that might view this presentation. We do have locations outside of North America, and anybody in any of these contact points would be available to answer any of your questions if you have any. Myself in North America and other people in different parts of the world. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll be ending the presentation now.